A couple months ago or so, I talked about a brand new WordPress based email list tool called FluentCRM. And at the time, it was available on a lifetime membership plan, and it was something that they were basically trying to kick out into the market. So it's only about 2 months old, but at the time, I didn't really dive that much into the product and what it can actually do. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're going to take a look at FluentCRM. I'm going to show you the inside, and you can judge for yourself whether this might be a viable option for your email list. So first of all, why even look at an option like this? I've always said in the past, and many others have too, that self-hosting your email list has usually been a really bad idea. And that's because in the past, and I've used some, that there were newsletter style systems that you could self-host, but the problem is it would send those emails from your own server. And that's an extremely bad idea. You're going to end up on all kinds of spammer blacklists. You're probably going to get banned from your web host. All that is a really bad idea. And so for the longest time, I was always saying, definitely go with a third-party option, in which case we end up looking at options like Aweber, ConvertKit, Drip, ActiveCampaign. You know all the ones, Constant Contact, you know the drill. The thing is, those types of setups have a fairly hefty bill. And in fact, those types of setups usually, for many of you, are going to have a higher monthly bill even than your own web host, okay? And so you might start off with an intro-level SiteGround account or something and be paying, less than $10 a month for your hosting, but then you come in there with a really small email list because you're just getting started, and you might be paying 19 bucks a month for your email list host, or maybe $29 a month, and then it goes up from there. And so one of the main reasons why you might want to consider self-hosting it is strictly to save money, okay? Now, there's also a certain elegance to having everything in-house, that when you back up your WordPress site, you're going to be backing up your email list as well. So there's some benefits that go with it. And now you can integrate your site with something like Amazon SES or SendGrid, Mailgun, stuff like that, and outsource the actual sending of your emails, even though you're actually hosting the list right there inside of WordPress. So FluentCRM is a brand new arrival to the scene. I think it holds a lot of promise. Now let me just show you the inside of it. Okay, so what I've done is I've set up FluentCRM inside of my RV site, okay? And I don't have a list in here. I'm the only subscriber on here. Right now, my Happily RV list is still over on Drip, so I have not actually migrated anything to it, but I just wanted to check out how this thing actually works. And it's really clean. This is the main dashboard for FluentCRM, and you see that you'd have some basic stats here, and then you've got this graph. So as I am adding people to my list, this graph would be populated. We can obviously pick different date ranges, and we can also look at different metrics like subscribers growth, email sending, email open, and link clicks. Okay. Now up here in the top, which is a nice touch, you can easily search for a contact that is on your list, which is really nice because when you're actually dealing with customer support, you want to be able to quickly look up any subscriber in order to deal with their inquiry, and that makes it really simple. Plus, you've got these quick links to the various sections of FluentCRM here, as well as here from the main dashboard. Now, when we go to contacts, right now, I've only got myself in here. But the thing I really like about this is just how clean it is and how fast it is. We have a nice, CRM style setup here, address, name, city, all that kind of stuff. If we click on emails, we've got, we would have a list of the emails that this subscriber has actually been sent, as well as any email sequences they're receiving and any automations that they're in the middle of, okay? When it comes to form submissions, we'd be able to see which opt-in forms across our site. If we're using one of the supported add-ons, which FluentCRM right now is is pretty much their main one, but you'd be able to see what opt-in forms they actually did. And then under notes and activities, you'd be able to actually add random notes just as a general record. So you could type anything that you wanted here. You can also choose different types, whether it's a note, a call, you sent them an email, you want to record a meeting, quote set up for standard CRM functionality. etc., etc. So that's kind of a nice touch. Now, one other thing I really like is how easy it is to set up custom fields in here. You can see that I've got one little test field here. Now, if we go over under settings to custom contact fields, you can see that you can add as many as you want. You've also got different field types. So we got single text, we got numeric, we can do a drop down, we can do all kinds of different things, dates. I mean, this is really, really cool. And quite frankly, this is a lot better than even what I have inside of Drip. And I pay a lot more money for Drip because Drip, you just have simple field names and values, and there's no ability to have different field types or anything. So this right here is just way better than even what I have with Drip, which is really interesting. Now, if we look under contact, we've also got the ability to set up different lists, okay? So just like a Weber or many other tools, you can have multiple lists inside of FluentCRM. Now, one thing is that a lot of more modern systems tend to work with just one email list, and then you separate people based on tags and stuff like that. FluentCRM is a little bit more like ActiveCampaign in the fact that you can do both. You can have multiple lists, and you can also, of course, do tags, okay? And so you've got both options there. And then under dynamic segments, this is where you can set up a certain segment of your list based on whatever criteria you want here. You could look at fields, city, their location, tags, what list they're on, etc. But these are dynamic segments, which means that you set up the criteria, and then as subscribers' information changes and that they may become a member of that particular segment, it'll automatically work. So for example, you could set up something here that says if they have a tag that says they are in the RV inspection checklist, which is just one of my tags, then anytime a subscriber gets tagged that way, they're going to automatically become part of the segment, okay? So you can see how that actually works, and this would be really useful for targeting. You could target your members, different member levels with it, etc. So that's how that actually works. Now, when we switch over to campaigns, first of all, we've got campaigns, and the terminology here throws me off just a little bit because basically what this is a broadcast, okay? When I think of campaigns, I'm thinking a multi-step thing that is on a schedule, but that's actually what they have under email sequences. And so if you look at sequences, you can see I've got a couple of emails in here. And if you go to edit one of these emails, you can control the gap in between these different emails. You can also set what kind of time range you want. So you will only send these autoresponder emails at certain times of the day. So you get a lot of really cool capability there under sequences. And this is where you'd have the multi-step, multi-email setup. Under campaigns, however, it's just a one email blast, okay? So if you go to create a new campaign and we just say broadcast one, whatever we want to call that. Now, one little thing, I think that they should have something pre-filled out here because it's just an extra bit of work to have to manually type a campaign title. I think they should just do like campaign and then maybe insert a timestamp or something just to get us started. Now, if we move over to this, we've got 4 steps. First, we have compose, where we'll actually write the email, and then subject and settings. Then we're going to pick who's going to get it, and then we're going to review and send that bad boy. Now, the actual editor here is basically using the block editor. That if you were doing blog posts and you're using the traditional Gutenberg editor, it's going to pretty much work the same way, okay? So you can start typing in here. We can have different types of blocks. Let's remove that. Let's add a block. We got paragraphs, images, headings, lists. We got under here, we've got some of those same basic ones. We've got a classic block we could throw in there if we just want to have the classic editor back, which is sort of what we're used to from the old days. We've got, let's look at some of the other ones. Custom HTML, which you might want to use from time to time. If you want to insert a table, you could actually do that, which is kind of a nice touch. But you get the idea here. It's a block editor. One cool one they've got is this conditional section, which is something where you can type anything that you want into this email, okay? Whatever you want it to be inside that email. But that yellow section, what's going to happen is that you can actually have conditions on it that you will only show that text in the email if they have a particular tag or if they don't have a particular tag. And that's a really, really nice touch, makes it really easy. And quite frankly, that's yet another thing that I find to be simpler and easier than Drip, because inside of Drip and many other systems, you have to use this liquid templating engine and it's just more geeky. Whereas in here, it's all just right there in the interface. So that's a really beautiful touch. Okay. Now, if we go back to campaigns without saving that one, let's go to one that I already played around with here. So if we go to here, there's not much there, but let's go over to subject because I wanted to show you the screen. Here's where we enter our subject line. If we want to split test different subject lines, we can do that really easily. We can control our pre-header. We can add UTM tags for campaign tracking for any outgoing links in those emails. You can also customize your from name and reply to emails if you want to change it from whatever you have as the default in your system. Okay, and then of course you can send that test email. Okay, now if I were to enter all this, let's just do this, go to the next step. When they're here, this is where you're going to pick who's going to actually get it. So what list they might be on, and then what tags they might have, and you can add other conditions, and then you can do include and exclude, okay? Now, if you want to use one of those dynamic segments that you set up, then you'll be able to do that as well nice and easily, okay? And then you'll get over to the next step, and you'll confirm everything, and then you'll kick it out the door. So that's how that actually works. We've already covered the email sequences, and then email templates is where you can actually set up pre-written emails that where you can easily reuse them in various places without having to create them again. So this can be just a real big time saver, and it still uses the same block editor that what we were used to. Now, a word about forms, because when you go to forms, like right now you see something here, okay? However, it uses Fluent Forms, and Fluent Forms is made by the same company. It's a pretty good plugin in and of itself. However, that is really the only option if you want to be able to control your opt-in forms built into the interface. If you want to use any other setup like Gravity Forms or something like that, you're going to need to use some type of a bridge plugin to make them work together. It's not going to have this nice interface, okay? So you need to keep that in mind, that FluentCRM is designed to work best with Fluent Forms in order to create your opt-in forms. And then you'll get these short codes and you'll stick them around your site like a lot of other WordPress-based forms work, okay? If you're using Gravity Forms or one of those, this might potentially give you a reason why you want to switch to Fluent Forms, and it looks to be a pretty robust setup. So if you were to create a form, you'd pick one of the basics, but you could take a lot more control if you went over to Fluent Forms itself. And this is where you actually can take much more control over the various forms and what they do. You've got all these different input fields and the whole thing, but that's an entirely separate product. Let's go back to FluentCRM. Now, under automations, this is a really important area and something that's really, really cool, but it needs to have some additional capability before I could totally use this. Let's go into one that I just was playing around with. So you're going to have a trigger here, which is going to be based on whatever you set up. One interesting thing I found is that once I've set a trigger, it doesn't seem as if I can really edit it very well, which is kind of a problem. But so let's go back here and let's go like we were going to create a new one, because I wanted to show you that you can have triggers based on WordPress, like such as a new user signing up. You can trigger based on the CRM itself, which is if they are added or removed from a list, or they have a tag applied or removed from their profile. And you can trigger these automations, and then you can also select particular forms that you want to use as a trigger. Okay, but once you're in one of these, you can actually set up an automation that runs similar to what you would see from something like Aweber or ConvertKit or even Drip or ActiveCampaign or some of those. Now, with some exceptions. For example, we do not yet have the ability to run conditional logic inside of an automation funnel. I can't say if they have a tag, go one way, if they don't have a tag, go another way. You just can't do stuff like that yet inside of FluentCRM, but I know that it's coming. It's just not there now. So what we have right now are these options. I can send them a custom email. I can send them a sequence of emails. I can just turn off the automation. I can add or remove tags, add or remove list, all that. Under benchmarks, these are things that you can add into an automation as a goal. And so if that goal happens, you can execute other actions. And you've got the basic ones like adding to a list or removing from a list, tag applied, tag removed. So what you could do, for example, is have it so that if you add them to the buyer's list because they just purchased your product, you can automatically turn off the automation so they're no longer going to be promoted for the product they just purchased. And you could do that also by tag. If they receive the customer tag, you can execute certain automations. And it's all built in here really nicely. And it's very visual. This is if I were to write a custom email as part of the automation. This one, I think I got some steps in here so you can see how it actually works. It's very visual and you can move these things around, which is really nice. It's a nice setup considering that it's inside of WordPress. It really is. But again, what we don't have is the ability to do conditionals here, and that's definitely missing. Right now, it's all linear. You're just going to go in one linear order, and then it would be a done deal. And then lastly, under settings, we've got some of the global settings that you can pick for your setup here. Your from name, your reply addresses, your footer, all this kind of stuff. You can control your double opt-in settings, your confirmation emails. You can also, when your people are subscribing via your forms, you can just turn off double confirmation if you don't want to use it. Under webhooks, this is for the geekier types, but it does allow you to technically integrate FluentCRM with things that it does not actually integrate with, because as long as those outside tools can ping webhooks, you would be able to send information into FluentCRM. So when you create a webhook, you just call it whatever you want, but then you say you give it some defaults here about what list they're going to get put on, what tags are going to get put on, what their subscriber status should be, etc. Now, technically, that you can overwrite these things when you actually do the webhook, but these are like the defaults. And then what's going to happen is you're going to create it and you're going to get yourself some geeky data here to be able to use. And here's your URL. So it's a little geeky, but if an outside system that you're using does have the ability to ping webhook URLs, you can get data into Fluent that way. Now, under the SMT email service settings, this is where, there's not a lot in here yet. I know they're going to probably develop this further. They also are going to have their own email plugin to allow you to more easily integrate with things like Amazon SES. But you're going to have to set up some type of an SMTP plugin on WordPress. I use one called Post SMTP right now, and so my site is integrated with Amazon SES at the moment, and I can send out, I think, up to 50,000 emails a day right now from this WordPress installation without any hiccups whatsoever because I'm integrated with Amazon SES. But that is an additional geeky layer that you're going to have to go through. I think it took me about a half an hour to figure out how to integrate with Amazon SES. Because Amazon's not the most user-friendly thing in the world, but there are plenty of tutorials out there on how to do it. And once you've done it, you're done. You don't really have to worry about it anymore. But that's pretty much the gist of FluentCRM. It's a real snappy setup. I can see that this could definitely take over for something like Drip. In fact, some things I think it's better than Drip now. Other things in the automation department, it doesn't yet add up, but I think it can probably get there, which is really, really cool. Okay, so that was a quick down and dirty walkthrough with Fluent CRM as it stands today. Now, if you are on YouTube right now, then below you'll find a link to the blog post where I have a full written aspect of Fluent CRM, and I go into more detail on some of the various things, some of the things I think could have been improved. I also talk a little bit about how Fluent CRM can really be expanded, because right now it feels really limited if you're only looking at Fluent CRM. I mean, it does have some integrations with some membership software, with WooCommerce and some stuff like that. As far as opt-in forms, the only official option really is Fluent Forms. Now, if we look at a couple of options that are additional plugins, they're not created by the same company. One is called WP Fusion, and the other one is called Uncanny Automator. If you look at those two plugins and the fact that they both integrate with Fluent CRM, it actually opens up a whole lot of possibilities to you. And so even with the somewhat limited integrations that Fluent CRM has right now, when you take into account some of these other things that we have available to us, you actually have a lot of flexibility, and it can make this a really attractive option. That being said, I still need to have conditional logic in the automations myself. And also, I happen to be a really big fan of both Thrive Themes and ConvertBox, neither of which have a clean way of integrating in with Fluent CRM yet. I hope that will come. There is the webhook capability of Fluent CRM, and so technically I could get leads from ConvertBox into Fluent CRM. It's just going to be kind of nerdy and not very much fun. I'd much rather have something a lot more direct. And so those are some of the things that are keeping me from using Fluent CRM right now. But considering we're only 2 months into the life cycle of this product right now, it's really promising what I'm seeing. And if I didn't have those unique needs with my business, I probably would be switching everything over right now because I think it's ready. It's ready to send out a lot of email, and you would drastically reduce your email hosting bill. So one thing I want to bear in mind is, even though I don't believe the tool it's not ready for me yet, I'm definitely keeping a strong eye on it. But I will say that if you were in the very early phases of your business, you don't have a super big email list yet, you're not doing any super fancy marketing automation stuff, definitely check out Fluent CRM as an option, because when you consider that you're paying probably at a minimum about $19 a month for a small email list with something like Aweber, you might save yourself some real money by going with something like Fluent, because then you're also not going to have that tax. As your email list grows, your monthly bill goes up. With Fluent CRM, you're not going to have that problem. It doesn't matter how big your list is, the cost is always the same, which is a really, really incredible thing. So anyway, that's an inside look into Fluent CRM. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them for you, and I will talk to you later.